Barack Obama says that U.S. strikes in Iraq will continue after announcing that the militant siege of Mount Shinjat had been broken. The UN declares the highest level of emergency in Iraq as fighting rages between the country's security forces and extremist militants. An uneasy truce holds in Gaza, while Hamas says that any permanent agreement with the Israelis must meet the demands of the Palestinians. And Hezbollah's leader reaffirms the group's readiness to confront the Israeli threat and says the Zionists lost the war in Gaza. Good evening and welcome to Alat Tashah World News. I'm Maryam Khaddar. Let's begin with some breaking news coming to us over the past hour. According to reports, Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki is about to announce his resignation and hand his post over to Haider al-Abadi, who has received backing from much of the world. I want to bring in our correspondent from Iraq, Mustafa Kattan, for more on that. Mustafa, first of all, we are hearing reports that Nouri al-Maliki is about to step down. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, actually, the Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, he said he will take whatever means necessary, but in the political firm, to claim his right to form the next government and to maintain as a Prime Minister for a third mandate. But he considered the Iraq interest and the national interest as a top priority, and he said, and according to officials in the coalition, they said that Mr. Maliki will not oppose any bid to pluck the country from the deteriorated security situation, and to form an inclusive government that can provide the best services and actually to facilitate the job and the work of the Iraqi army. So it's expected that Mr. Maliki will announce his resignation and actually to step down to his counterpart and his partner, Dr. Haider al-Abadi, who actually have been welcomed internationally and internally with wide acceptance. And they think that Mr. Abadi, who starts intensified dialogues with several political parties and elites to form the next government that can bring about a positive change to the country and actually to help the army and all the Iraqi security forces to expel IS militants from Iraq. Yes.
So where does this leave the country of Iraq? Can Abadi bridge the gap between Baghdad and the Kurds?
Well, actually, after the announcement of Mr. Masoud Barzani, when he said he supports Mr. Abadi, he offered complete support to Mr. Abadi, and he said that Mr. Abadi can do much and for Iraqi people and for Iraq to shift Iraq from bad circumstances and bad situation to a better situation. Also, several Kurdish officials said that Mr. Abadi he can be the man of the next time and the next period, and actually he can actually to fix and to repair the situation between the center and the Kurdish region, and to solve the protracted situation between the center and the Kurdish region, especially the problems about oil and gas and the disputed territories. So the Kurds actually show some positive signs about Mr. Abadi, and they said that they are prepared to participate in a government that Mr. Abadi is on the top of it. Yes.
And so what is Maliki's future political role likely to be now?
Well, Mr. Abadi, he announced 3 days ago that Mr. Maliki is a very important partner in Iraq, and no one can deny his efforts in fighting fighting terrorism and his bid to secure the country and to keep the country united. Well, Mr. Maliki, of course, as many political experts say, he will not accept any position or any portfolio in the government. He might be maybe just an ordinary member part in the parliament. But of course, he will keep his position as the former prime minister, and maybe he will be a consultant, or maybe to take, as a political official said, and political expert, they said he will be a consultant or an official who can support and help Mr. Abadi to choose his list of ministers and to form an inclusive government in the next time.
So will Abadi be able to turn the current in the government's favor in their fight against IS militants?
Well, Mr. Abadi, as his office announced today, they said Mr. Abadi is trying to form a government as quick as possible, and to assign the Minister of Defense and Minister of Interior, in order to put the plans and to take whatever means necessary and took the suitable procedures to fight IS militants and to fight the militants in the western and the northern Iraq. Also, Mr. Abadi is trying to open a new path with America, with the UK, and with the EU countries in order to support the Iraqi army and to provide sophisticated equipment and jet fighters in order to blunt IS advances and also to repel them and to expel them from Iraq and forever. So Mr. Abadi and his team members are trying to find the best solutions and try to have dialogues and negotiations openly with all political factions. And he announced several times, and he reiterated that he has no red lines with anyone. His first priority is to protect Iraq and to provide a strong and capable army that he can do, and he can expel IS militants and any other extremist militants in Iraq. Yes.
All right, Mustafa, we will try to come back to you later on in the program, but thank you very much for those updates.
ISIS militants take full control of the province of Mosul.
Iraqi army advances in Mosul after fierce fighting with ISIS militants. Mosul will be liberated soon.
We begin with the ongoing crisis in Iraq, where turbulent developments on both the political and security fronts continue to plague the country. Now, the U.S. President Barack Obama is weighing in again. In his latest press conference, Obama announced that the militant siege of thousands of people from Iraq's Yazidi religious group has been broken. The U.S. President also expressed hope that Iraq's Prime Minister-designate Haider al-Abadi will be able to form an all-inclusive government.
I had a chance to speak to Prime Minister-designate Abadi a few days ago, and he spoke about the need for the kind of inclusive government, a government that speaks to all the people of Iraq that is needed right now. He still has a challenging task in putting a government together, but we are modestly hopeful that the Iraqi government situation is moving in the right direction. We broke the ISIL siege of Mount Sinjar. We helped vulnerable people reach safety, and we helped save many innocent lives. We will continue airstrikes to protect our people and facilities in Iraq.
In light of Washington's latest humanitarian intervention in Iraq, aid agencies from around the world are joining forces to save the Yazidi community from utter extermination.
This year has been a very big...
With the UN declaring a level 3 emergency in Iraq, international aid has been mobilized to those trapped and fleeing extremist militants in northern Iraq's Mount Sinjar.
The situation for the people arriving in Duhok from Sinjar really is very dramatic. I was there myself to meet the governor to discuss UN assistance for the people who are arriving. What WFP is doing is providing hot meals to people who are newly arrived, and we're also providing family rations for those who are able to cook for themselves.
Neighbouring Turkey has also lent a helping hand, providing refuge to some 2,000 Yazidis in the southeastern province of Sirnak. Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan even took pride in saying his country is the only one to open its doors to the Yazidis, vowing to later accommodate some 16,000 of them. Already thousands of Yazidis have poured into camps in Iraq's Kurdish region and crossed through neighbouring Syria to find refuge. But now, according to the Pentagon, the humanitarian crisis is not as bad as initially feared. for a US evacuation mission. A team of US military and humanitarian aid personnel who flew to the Sinjar Mountains to assess the situation reportedly found far fewer people and in better condition than expected.
Well, there does seem to be some good news, and that is that the American-led scouting operation has found fewer people on the mountainside than expected. Also, we see that the UK aid drops have made a difference and have got through to people. But I think it's good news there are fewer people there and they're in better condition than expected.
The small minority group embodies the plight of the Iraqi nation. For 2 months now, over 400,000 Iraqis have been displaced and thousands have been slaughtered at the hands of the so-called Islamic State militants. Why Washington chose to act now in the name of one minority group raises questions as to whether the US really wants to thwart recent IS advances.
The governor of Iraq's western province of Anbar appears to have secured U.S. support in the battle against Islamic State militants. After meeting with U.S. diplomats and a senior military officer, Anbar's governor Ahmed al-Dulaimi requested air support against militants who have a tight grip on large parts of the western province. This comes as ongoing fighting between the Iraqi army and insurgents in Anbar's eastern city of Fallujah left 4 children and 1 woman dead. Well, as you heard there, Haider Abadi looks destined to become Iraq's next prime minister after the country's most prominent religious figure, Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Ali al-Sistani, pledged his support for the premier-designate.
The increase in military activities over Iraq has done little to reduce the political turmoil plaguing the capital, Baghdad. At present, there are 2 politicians from the same political bloc fighting tooth and nail to secure the post of Prime Minister. But a handwritten letter from Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Ali al-Sistani, which was personally signed and stamped, has spelled the end for Iraq's embattled Premier, Nouri al-Maliki. I see the need to speed up the selection of a new Prime Minister who has wide national acceptance. The letter was sent to a Dawa party leaders shortly before the party endorsed Haider al-Abadi as the next Prime Minister, amid internal squabble within the state of law coalition.
Currently, there are only 28 parliament members standing by al-Maliki and against al-Abadi. It is a number announced by Iraq's state television. It means that the state-of-the-law coalition has already split.
Al-Abadi was officially nominated by President Fuad al-Masum on Monday. He was quickly backed by Iran and the US, to name a few, though al-Maliki has so far refused to relinquish power, as he deems the move by the Iraqi president as unconstitutional. The incumbent premier has vowed to press ahead with his bid to retain power. But pressure is mounting, especially after the 2 most prominent Shia Muslim figures, Iran's Supreme Leader Sayyid Ali al-Khamenei and Ayatollah Sayyid Ali al-Sistani, pledged their support for al-Abadi, with al-Maliki appearing more likely than ever to bid a final farewell to a 3rd term in office.
I want to bring in Sabah Jawad now. He is a political analyst joining us from London. Mr. Jawad, U.S. President Barack Obama has said that they have broken the siege on Mount Shinjar, but that airstrikes on militant hideouts will continue. So my question is, how far can we expect this military operation to go?
Well, basically, the United States actually is in full control of the political process in Iraq. They use as a pretext to intervene and return back to Iraq after they had to withdraw in 2011. They are back now in force in Iraq. They are using the pretext of ISIS and their operations in the north of Iraq actually to control the political process. And what we've seen in the past few days actually, that the United States is violating even its own idea of imposing this political process in Iraq, which was created after the occupation of Iraq in 2003. And basically they say that the election does not matter. The statements by the al-Maliki government and going to the Supreme Court and the federal courts to decide who is eligible to nominate the Prime Minister is not important, and the threat against al-Maliki not to go toward that legal way as well. All very strong indicator that actually the Americans are in full control of the political process in Iraq. And seems that they put the al-Maliki government in the corner. Personally, al-Maliki had no choice but to accept and to abandon his attempt to secure a ruling from the federal court, because that will be unwise, considering that even his colleagues in Ad-Dawah party has abandoned him, Al-Marja'iyya has abandoned him, and all the political forces in the Iraqi alliance, that include al-Sadr and Al-Hakim and Shahristani and Al-Ja'fari, all supported his opponent Abbadi as well. So I mean, al-Maliki has no alternative but to basically agree to this. We have to wait and see what the American will do in Iraq, but they are introducing the same recipe which led to this disaster in Iraq in the past, since the occupation actually. You know, this political process does not work. We've seen how the parliament was in conflict with the cabinet, where the prime minister in conflict with the president, and so on. All the state institutions are in conflict with each other. And that's because of the political system which was created by the American to maintain Iraq as a weak and divided nation. And no progress could be achieved if we maintain this so-called political process. We have to look afresh for a new way. And I think perhaps one of the reasons why al-Maliki was ousted, I'm not a supporter of al-Maliki, but at least he was thinking to go outside the box, if you like, in terms of establishing a government which is based on political majority, which seems to upset a lot of political forces in Iraq, because they like to represent their narrow sectarian interests, and upset the Kurds and upset the Americans and so on. And also al-Maliki started concluding some deals to buy arms from Russia, which must be very upsetting for the American, because the Americans don't want to supply Iraq with sophisticated weapons, because the Kurdish leadership doesn't want that to happen, and because Israel doesn't want that to happen. Israel wants to prevent all Arab countries from gaining military technology which actually could threaten them in the future. So the American takes Iraqi money for the Phantom F-16, but do not supply Iraq with these weapons as well, which led al-Maliki to go to Russia and ask for weapons, and some of the weapons actually he's been using in Mosul as well. So there are several reasons why the American want to get rid of al-Maliki and bring a weak leader, and Abbadi represent that trend within the future Iraqi government as well. Abbadi is going to be a hostage to the Kurdish leadership, and is going to be a hostage to the Najafi and other groups which are already demanding that actually to bring back former Ba'athists to power in Iraq and to their former positions in the military and perhaps in the government as well, and to to gain more concession from him regarding many other issues as well. The situation is very dangerous in Iraq, and is going to continue to be like that until actually the Americans leave us alone and not keep imposing their will, because we know that since they imposed their will in Iraq in 2003, we've seen disaster after disaster. We've seen blood spilling in the streets of Baghdad and elsewhere in Iraq as well. So the sooner we get rid of
Mr. Jawad, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I would like to keep you on the line with us. In a few minutes, we'll come back to you. But right now, we'd like to take our audience live to Nouri al-Maliki, who is holding a press conference following his meeting with the Dawah party. Let's just listen in.
Oh, the great Iraqi people. I wanted to stay with you to defend Iraq. And I didn't lose trust in you when you went out and sacrificed and voted for us with the blue ink. and the clean blood, so that we were able to get the most votes among the contestants. Your work and your help will stay in my heart, and it will stay in the Iraqi history. I shall bear everything, and I shall take anything that you give me. It is my responsibility to defend this country and defend the people and the sacred places. When we formed the government in 2006, Iraq was a bloody place. Baghdad was besieged. Its streets were besieged. Everything was closed. And there was no commercial or business or any. It was all quiet. There was 150 coalition forces on our ground, and their security file was dangerous to the country, and their political project wasn't in our interest. It was for foreign interests, not Iraqi interests. But we were able to succeed and reconstruct Iraq and make it what it is today, from agricultural to commercial to infrastructure to residential. The people that were able to lead to this place, from increasing the price of oil, and we were able to use our oil reserves and export it and bring foreign reserves into the country and increase the living standards and the GDP of the country. We were able to increase we were able to better the country. Iraq, which was separated and isolated from the rest of the country in 2006, is now on the international community, a player, a regional country. And we now have international players and international leaders coming to Baghdad. And we found out that there are some enemies for Baghdad. I tell the people of Iraq that there is a new path of terrorism in the Arab world. There is a new era of terrorism in the global and regional stage. And there has to be cooperation between all of us. And it was those regional countries that helped create these terrorist groups. And with the problems and the crisis in Syria, the crisis spilled over to neighboring Iraq. Some regional and world players tried to make a sectarian crisis in Iraq and in Syria. They wanted to make some changes in the geopolitical map of the region, Iraq and Syria. And this created a security dilemma in the country where IS was able to capture Mosul. It started in Syria, but it came to Iraq. And it was with the help of regional players. They helped these militant groups stand and become what they are today. But we were able, with our army and the volunteers and the Iraqi people, to fight them and to combat terrorism and to transfer from the defensive to the offensive on the military ground. And we are now able to open borders and streets between different regions, between different cities in Iraq. We tell you that the person who is targeted is not Maliki, it's all of Iraq. I tried my best. I used all my effort. I exhausted all my... I tried all the efforts to combat this crisis, this problem.
لحظة واحدة في حق ائتلاف دولة القانون ومرشحها دستوريا في تشكيل الحكومة الجديدة. وكان واجبا علي.
I tell you that as the leader of the State of Law Coalition, I had to take over. And to anything that breaches the Constitution, it is my duty, in respect of the confidence that the people gave me, the Iraqi people gave me, and the Constitution, the Iraqi Constitution, I had to protect the rights of the Iraqi people.
من أنظمة حكم دخلت مرحلة الشيخوخة وفقدان الحريات وانعدام الديمقراطية وتفشي السياسات.
I wanted to prevent Iraq from going back to a stage where there is no democracy, no rights for the people.
لعدم إيماني بهذا الخيار.
I chose to use force against these militant groups so that Iraq would not plunge into dictatorships and into a country plunged by terrorism, and so that its interests remain intact. Iraq will face a lot of problems in the future. And I mean using force in the political process. I tell the people to use the constitutional measures to be able to create.
التزمت الآليات القانونية في معركة الدفاع عن الدستور حتى اتهمت
I wanted to
مع أنه كان دفاعا عن الوطن وحرمة الدستور والاستحقاقات الانتخابية والدفاع عن الحق والدفاع عن الحق لا يعني بأي حال من الأحوال.
To defend what is right and what is just is what I tried to do. And that I'm not going to complain to the federal court. I tell the Iraqi people that I am not going to be the purpose of another drop of blood of the Iraqi people. As Imam Ali told us, I tell the Iraqi people that I do not want any position unless you want me to have it. And I tell you that I know that the formation of the new government, I'm going to give it to Dr. Haidar Abadi to protect the interests and the rights of the Iraqi government and the Iraqi people and the Iraqi army.
وسندا لمن ينهض بأعباء المسؤولية والأمانة.
And he is someone that you can trust
وشجاعة في إحقاق الحق
from his courage and his ability to stand in the face of terrorism and sectarianism and to unite the Iraqi people. I salute the Iraqi army and the security forces and the volunteers for what they have done so far. And I praise them. And I tell them not to let go of their duties, their national duties. And their number one priority has to be to combat terrorism and to protect the sovereignty of the country. I praise and I salute the martyrs of Iraq who stood in the face of dictatorships and stood in the face of terrorism.
والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Latest pictures that we received of outgoing Premier Nouri al-Maliki officially announcing his resignation, thereby leaving room for his successor, Haidar al-Abadi, to take his place in office. Now, to discuss that further, I'd like to get our Iraq correspondent back on the line, Mustafa Kattan, to discuss that. Now, Mustafa, how is this going to go down with the Iraqi people?
Yes, actually, the people in Iraq, will, of course, they will receive this news and the resignation of Mr. Maliki with wide respect, and now he emphasized that he put the interest of Iraq on his own and his partisan interests. Mr. Maliki, as it was expected, he will not be an obstacle or to be a barrier to the political process, the democratic political process in Iraq. And he said that he will consolidate and he will support the government that will be formed by Mr. Abadi. And also, we just know that the position of vice president had been offered to Mr. Maliki, but he refused, as he said now in his speech. He will not accept any other governmental position, and he will remain as a fighter who will defend Iraq's right and the Iraqi people's right to have a decent and honorable life. Yes.
So what level of support does Maliki have now, if any?
Well, after his speech now, after he said he will not, after his resignation, now his supporters will do nothing, actually. They will try to support Mr. Abadi because there is something is unifying Iraq, which is the terrorism and IS onslaught on the Iraqi people, which is targeting the Iraqi people randomly. So now the best thing to do for the supporters of Maliki, and as it's expected, is to accept the current situation and to keep reacting to the procedures of Maliki and to the next government peacefully, and just to try to make the things work and to maintain security, and that's it. Now, the members in the State of Law Coalition, they might take the side of opposition in the parliament, who try to evaluate the government performance and to assign any weakness in their performance. That's it. So everything, as Mr. Maliki said, and his members, they said they will do everything peacefully to emphasize the concept of transferring the power in Iraq peacefully, and never to go back to the dictatorship or to the authoritarianism. So
all right, Mustafa Kattan, we are going to leave it there. Thank you very much. We appreciate your thoughts on that. We want to take you back to Sabah Jawad, who is standing by for us. He's a political analyst in London. Now, Mr. Jawad, as you heard there, you heard Premier, or outgoing Premier now, Iraqi Premier Nouri al-Maliki's speech there. Now, I just want to hear your thoughts on what he said.
I suspect the people of Iraq actually will remember Nouri al-Maliki, some of positive things that he done through his 2 terms in office, and also the negative things that he's done and things. I'm not a supporter of Nouri al-Maliki, but one of the you know, the main point against him was that he did not do basically a lot in regard to improve the security situation in Iraq. We have a corrupt army, we have corrupt officers, and that was proven the case actually in Mosul, where the army hierarchy did not even fire one single shot against ISIS forces, terrorist group, and so on. And the second thing is actually he did not do anything regarding major corruption scandals in Iraq. We see people who looted a huge amount of money and deals worth billions of pounds. Nothing happened to them, and in fact they just left the country with their money they've stolen as well. So these 2 points are very much against what Noor al-Maliki failed to do in his 2 terms of office. But there's also something positive in his premiership. For example, he refused to give the American forces immunity from prosecution when we were talking about the SOFA agreement, which led to the withdrawal of American forces in Iraq in 2011. He also put an end, who did not agree to the excessive demand of the Kurdish leadership in regard to the oil revenue, stealing of the Iraqi oil and selling it in collaboration with the Turkish government as well, and also their demand regarding Kirkuk as well. So there's a positive aspect of Noor al-Maliki rule. And he also went against the American in buying arms from Russia, because the American refused actually to supply him with arms.
Well, now before we continue speaking about that, I am sorry to...
Finally, can I just say this? Yeah, finally, the most important thing is that al-Maliki was thinking of changing the political process in Iraq. He started in the last few months talking about the majority rule in Iraq, which actually scared the Americans, scared a lot of political forces in Iraq as well. And I think this is one of the main points where al-Maliki was plotted against by the American and the Kurdish leadership. And let us not forget that the Kurdish leadership actually got rid of 2 Iraqi prime ministers, Ibrahim al-Ja'fari and Noor al-Maliki.
Well, I just want to discuss the disagreements within Parliament. Haidar al-Abadi now has 30 days to form a new government. Now, if he is to do that, those disagreements within Parliament must be resolved. So is that even possible?
I think al-Abadi is now has got a good chance of forming a government. How long will this government continue to function properly, considering that a lot of people will put on their demands on the table and see how he handles these demands. If he agrees to all these demands, it might as well say goodbye to this government and perhaps future government under the same system. Under the same political system, because these kind of demands you cannot reconcile in one government. You cannot have oppositions and loyalists in the same government forever. The American and the British imposed a political system in Iraq. It did not even suitable for them. They did not practice these condition and political system in Britain or in America. They have a majority rule, but they impose on Iraq something which is counterproductive of producing any kind of sustainable and growing government, and which give you a lot of decent results. So without scrapping this political system, Abadi and other people who might come to power in the future will be tied up by this process.
And can Haidar al-Abadi bridge the gap between the Shiites, the Sunnis, and the Kurds?
Very difficult to please everyone. Shia are divided, as we've seen from the saga regarding a 3rd term of office for al-Maliki. The Shia has Sadr on one side, al-Hakim on one side, and some ad-Dawah, even ad-Dawah are split basically in government. And there are a lot of disagreements among the Shia alliances, form alliances, and they have to deal maybe could produce something in the future as a united front. This is the same problems regarding the so-called Sunni alliances. And the only alliance which seems to be solid and knows what it wants from the Iraqi political process is the Kurds. And their main task actually to keep the Iraqi central government in a weak state of mind. And they are winning the struggle in that. The recent announcement by the United States and Britain and France, they're going to supply arms to the Kurdish regions in isolation of the Iraqi central government is a very dangerous step to take by Western governments. That indicate actually the West want to have a de facto partition of Iraq without the proclamation or the announcement that such steps has taken place.
Mr. Jawad, we will stay with you. Please stay with us on the line. We will come back to you in a moment. But for now, I'd like to cross over to Mr. Saad Mutalibi. He is a former MP to the State of Law Coalition in Baghdad. Mr. Mutalibi, is this the best thing for Iraq at the current time?
Thank you very much. The news that just arrived a few hours ago that Mr. Maliki has accepted to step down and accepted for the sake of the unity of state of law to back the nomination of Dr. Haider al-Abadi for the position of the coming new prime minister in Iraq. So this is the very latest, and this has come as a great relief to everybody, in particular those who were standing behind Mr. Maliki, at the same time needed a peaceful resolution to this problem to keep state of law united and in a position to remain as the largest bloc within the parliament.
All right, Mr. Mutalibi, Haider al-Abadi said on his Twitter page, and I am quoting here, Nouri al-Maliki will remain an essential partner in the Iraqi political process. How realistic of a prospect is that given the current situation in Iraq?
I don't think Mr. Maliki is looking for a particular position in the coming government. Mr. Maliki, of course, remain as a major political force and major political player within Iraqi politics. He is the leader of the largest political bloc in the parliament, so definitely he will have a tremendous amount of influence within the parliament on the running of the affairs within the parliament, and also with the legislation of the most needed laws that were neglected in the last parliament sessions.
Well, the formation of a new government in Iraq will most likely do little to unite the political divisions. Now, is decentralization a much better solution here?
The matter of centralization or decentralization, all these issues are questions that need to be looked within the framework of the Constitution and need to be looked within the framework of the smooth running of the country. With the security circumstances and the security or the violent security environment here in Iraq, it's very difficult to speak of changing the political system or the running affairs of the state, since most matters are being governed by violence. So it's very hard. We need to have a period of quiet time, of relaxation, political relaxation, so people can think and people can think strategically on how to tackle matters. Unfortunately, until now, we have been firefighting to resolve problems each day at a time, where really we need a breathing space to sit and think and to find the best solutions to which fits Iraqi society and Iraqi mentality and Iraqi government within centralization or decentralization.
So would you say that Iraq's politicians have given in to U.S. pressure to get rid of Maliki?
Definitely. The United States had a great deal of effect on the breach of the Constitution and forcing Mr. Maliki out. Unfortunately, the United States wasn't the only country. There are other regional countries were implicated in this matter, and it's quite unfortunate. Really emphasize the fact that Iraq needs to rethink in its regional alliances and to look further who are Iraq's real friends in the region.
All right, Mr. Saad al-Mutalibi, the former MP to a state of law coalition in Iraq, thanks very much for your thoughts on that. Now, I'd like to cross back to Sabah Jawad, who is standing by for us still in London. Mr. Jawad, would you say that why would you say that Washington was so quick to endorse Abadi? Would you say that this is a matter of anyone but Maliki?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question. I didn't hear the question.
Yes, I was asking, why was Washington so quick to endorse Haider al-Abadi?
Why did they choose Haider al-Abadi?
Yes.
Well, they choose Haider al-Abadi because he's the same at Dawah party, actually. They didn't want to change too many horses, if you like, from different kind of situation. They wanted to keep kind of like that status quo as being from the same political party like Dawah party. And if failing to do that, they would have gone to somebody from the national alliance, Iraqi alliance, to pick up a candidate there. But they managed to get Abadi and with the support of many members of a Dawah party. So that saves some kind of problem for the United States. But this situation is not going to be resolved because the situation in Iraq and the political turmoil that we have in Iraq since the occupation is linked to a regional struggle, an international world order as well. The United States in a weak positions, not like before. It's want to fend off competitions, weak economically. It's paid the high price in occupation of Iraq and Afghanistan. Want to withdraw. They don't want to lose so many casualties in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's why they withdrew from Iraq and they are going to withdraw from Afghanistan. They wanted to keep control of the situation in the Middle East because of vital energy resources in the Middle East. And they have conflict with Iran. And in all that, the Saudis and the Gulf nations, actually, they tied their lots with Israel and the United States because they know that they not survive in the 21st century without the support of the United States and Israel. There are new alliances in the Middle East. And therefore, they want to attack any government, any movement which does not adhere to the diktat of the United States and Israel. That's why we see a situation similar to Iraq and Syria. We had a similar experience in Libya and Yemen and all over the Middle East. There are a concerted attempt actually to use groups, terrorist takfiri group like Daesh, to ruin the Arab countries and to weaken Arab states and to fragment the people in the Middle East based on sectarian division and struggle and against create ethnic conflict like Arab against Kurds and Kurds against other nation who lives for thousands of years in harmony in the Middle East. We see this kind of situation developing in the whole Middle East, and therefore the situation in Iraq will improve when there is a conflict resolution on the Middle East area rather than just in Iraq. For example, when the Americans reach a conclusion in their negotiation with Iran. But hearing the speech of Khamenei yesterday, the Iranian leader, is not very optimistic about possible resolution very soon, in fact, because he was very pessimistic about the conduct of the Americans, and he accused them of tightening the grip on Iran in terms of economic sanction and on even the language regarding Iran as well. So it doesn't seem that there is any possibility that's a resolution which could be has a positive effect on the Iraqi situations as well.
All right, Mr. Sabah Jawad, that is all the time we have for now. Thank you very much for speaking to us. We appreciate it. All right, that's all the time we have for this edition of Al-Ittijah World News. But before we go, let's recap our headlines. Nouri al-Maliki steps down as Iraq's prime minister, handing the post over to fellow Dawa party member Haidar al-Abadi. Barack Obama says that U.S. strikes in Iraq will continue after announcing that the militant siege of Mount Shinjat had been broken. And the UN declares the highest level of emergency in Iraq as fighting rages between the country's security forces and extremist militants. Well, from all of us here at Ittijah News Team, thanks a lot for watching and have a good night.